Hello, hello. Welcome back to another edition of Unrestricted Live. I'm really excited that you're here, and I'm super excited for today. So just really quickly, I'd like to introduce myself and tell you a bit about Unrestricted. My name is Athena Simpson, and I think that the societal ideas around success are broken. We feel really overwhelmed and like we're not working hard enough, we're not good enough, and there's a lot of pressure on us to try to obtain these unrealistic expectations around success in our career, and also how we're meant to live our lives. So, I kind of realized that our ideas around success are someone else's. So, I also fed into that. I killed myself for my career. I worked really hard. I didn't really have a life outside of work. And I decided to replace my toxic thinking and my habits with positive ones. I ended up freeing myself from that mindset. I lost 44 pounds. I quit the business I was a partner in, and I literally ran away to join the circus. And now I'm really passionate about redefining this idea of success and sharing stories of inspiring people who are living their lives differently, who are realizing that the ideas that society imposes on us may not be the best ways to bring themselves happiness. So with that in mind, I wanted to start Unrestricted to kind of share those stories. So this is episode 5. And I'm really excited to introduce you to my guest today, Vanessa Sturman. She's a really inspiring person. She's an entrepreneur, and she is experiencing what we're all experiencing right now, but through a different lens. So I wanted to bring that conversation to the table as well. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Thanks. I'm really, really good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. In Panama, sun is shining, as you can see by this like massive reflection off my face right now. So
Lovely. It's really sunny here as well, actually, in the UK. It's up and down. Some
Ooh.
days it's like jumpers and sometimes a scarf, and then it's like get the shorts out. So yeah, never know what we're getting. That's how we like to live in the UK. So
amazing. I know. I remember that well. So Vanessa, I'd love if you could just take a couple of minutes, introduce us to yourself, and just tell us a bit about your career background.
yeah, sure. So I suppose I'll go quickly through some of it. I mean, I had a relatively normal career after finishing university. I went and worked in government for years. I did a bit of sustainability consultancy, which was great. And the government work. I mean, I'm very grateful to some of the people I met there, because they allowed me to actually work on the skills that I was really good at. So engaging with people, talking to people. There were a lot of people who were sort of working on the more sort of economic side. So I'm very grateful to some of that I got to do. But I did find it a little bit of the sort of grind, the 9 to 5, and during my time in government, even though I was doing some things that were exciting, I also became vegan during that time. And I've always been a passionate person, and I found veganism, and I thought, oh, I love this. I love food. I want to talk to other people about this, and I was sort of finding lots of ways of bringing it in. So everyone at work knew I was a vegan, and a lot of people actually wanted to do this vegan lunch club. So in the end, I had like about 12 people, pushing this vegan lunch club who weren't even vegan. They were like, "This is great! Someone cooks every week and brings stuff in," and so I thought, oh, I'm sort of doing this other work, and then I've got these little bits of veganism happening, and then I had one job that was just absolutely awful. And it was what they call a presenteeism culture, and what that means basically is if I can't see you and your bum's not on the seat, you're not working. So there's a a large amount of anxiety in those kinds of environments, because there's even points where I thought, if I even go to the toilet too much, I'm going to be thought to not work. And the truth was, I actually ended up ill. I was only in that job for about 6 months, that particular job, and I was ill on and off for 3 months of that, with stress. And in the end, I just quit. And actually, I remember the moment I quit, I'd call my mum every lunchtime and be really upset. And it was actually my mum who said to me, you can just leave even though you don't have a job to go to. And sometimes you need your mum, however old you are, even some of the biggest business people I've ever met have gone, sometimes you do need to phone your mum. And she said, you can just leave. And I went, that's a brilliant idea. And I left and didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I'd saved quite a lot of money, and I spent that summer, and that was when I was about 30 or something like that, and I spent that summer kind of chilling out, doing yoga. I was still kind of doing, going to a lot of vegan events and having a lot of vegan friends. And then I decided, I met my business partner actually, Louise. So she's a co-founder of the Vegan Larder with me, and we met, and we actually started doing food boxes, and also she had a food blog. So we were like, oh, let's do this together. I'd won actually randomly during my time off, won this massive piece of food consultancy to design a really big vegan wedding menu for this venue. And my response was, oh my God, I've just won this job and I've never designed a massive vegan wedding menu. I just cook really nice vegan food and they want this really fancy menu. Oh my God, Louise, you're going to have to help me. And I think that's very typical of the sort of entrepreneurship. You take things on and then you go, I got to figure out how I'm going to do this now. And that's what everyone does, and that was fine. And we sort of joined up, and we doing this blog together, started doing the blog together, started designing this menu together, and that was like our big piece of food consultancy. And then at the same time, I decided, because I was sort of starting out in my blog, and that's we started one bit of the business which we have now stopped, which I can go into, but I also needed a job where I could get some money in quickly as well, because I hadn't worked for about 6 months. And I realized actually I'm going to do sort of freelancing contract work. Yeah. And, I'd also decided I don't want to work 5 days a week, because I want to do my vegan stuff as well. And I also just don't want to work 5 days a week. And I would like to make this a reality. And various recruiters I would talk to would say, oh, I don't know about that. And I'd be like, just go and ask. And then the first job I got, which was a contract job, because I also decided I don't want to be permanent. I'd rather work really hard, be paid by day, have a bit more freedom, choose where I work. And turns out, if you're worth it, these places will say, actually, no, you can do 4 days as long as you're reliable, you know what you're doing. So I was like, actually, I quite like this life that I've carved out. And then having breaks in between, sometimes because you can't find work, and then I sort of go, I'll get on with my vegan business. And so for about 1.5 years of my vegan business, we did food boxes, and we decided to pivot at Christmas after doing this 1.5 years of food boxes, which we did really well. We were listed by The Independent, which is a newspaper in the UK, as the best vegan subscription box, and it's really exciting. But when people said, "Oh, why did you stop?" The truth was, we were dying. Like, it was killing us. Having a physical business like that, where we were using Louise's living room, you would then have to pay rent for somewhere once you moved out. There's a lot of sunk costs, like costs that you can't avoid, and you're very tied to. And it was taking away from like cooking beautiful food for our blog. Also realized that she and I wanted to do more educating, talking to people, helping people with their diets, and we didn't have time to do all of that. So at Christmas last year, we sort of knew we were going to do this for a bit, but we sort of went out with a bang. Did some really beautiful boxes supporting small businesses, getting really lovely food out. We got beautiful, incredible food that people had never even thought of, like vegan Parmesan cheese from all these amazing suppliers we found. They were like, right, we've done a really good thing, and now let's focus on the bits that make us happy and that are more sustainable and online, which is vital now with the situation we're in. So yeah, and that's where we are now. I've actually taken on my first coaching client as well. So I started a coaching business in terms of plant-based food. So that's very, very exciting. So I've been coaching people informally for a really long time on how to have a fun plant-based diet where, you eat great food. You don't even have to want to go fully vegan. We've started a group now called How to Go Plant-Based, where Louise and I can very personally help people with their questions about plant-based and vegan food from a sort of plant-based specialist point of view. And then our blog also focuses on, helping people with that, but also, seasonal plant-based eating, but with the kind of some of the naughtiness as well. So it's not just, putting vegetables on your plate, let's make sure we're giving you the chocolate cake and the vegan ice cream and the pies, but keeping it sort of healthy, but it's not just about, salads and goji berries, as we say. So that's where we are now.
Amazing. I just, I think that's why we bonded so quickly, like just the similar trajectories that we went on, like killing ourselves in careers and the massive anxiety about like, I need to work myself to death, and then discovering veganism and like starting a business. And I had a physical, recipe box business. And even though the product was amazing, like the process killed me. I was so happy to just kind of like walk away from that one and do the freelance consulting stuff outside of that. So, you're such a good example of, you can have a really great career, but decide you're passionate about something and kind of, explore both sides of it. Like you don't have to do one or the other. You can kind of like try things out, and that allows you a little bit more flexibility. Yeah. So, tell me about, so right now you guys have pivoted. So this is kind of your focus for the next 3 to 6 months. What's the kind of immediate future looking like for you and what you're working on?
Yeah, so we've just started making videos, and we've just started a YouTube channel, the Vegan Larder. So there's some really, really lovely food going up there, and we just want to engage people, quickly and easily, give them things that are really useful. And I think that's that's sort of like the overall vision. And I don't really believe in your sort of goal always being this like make money. Obviously you've got to think strategic, you've got to think as a business, but in the end, like, what I really want to do is help people with plant-based diets, that I want to help the animals. I want, to help the planet. And I see a lot of people suffering all sorts of health issues, but I also just see them struggling with food and what to eat. And also one of my fun beliefs is that food should be really fun and delicious and bring people together. And I see people struggling and they go, I just made this food and it's just gross and it's beige and someone needs to help me. And it's really really satisfying. Even just like the Facebook group that I've started, and that's how to go plant-based, being able to really personally help people. So not just sort of giving one word answers, and then that's not criticism of other people, but sometimes people need someone a bit more dedicated to help them, and it's really really satisfying. People are on there, and it's very inclusive. So it's people who just say, look, I just want to do a few more plant-based things. I want to get a bit healthier. No one has to have a goal on there, and it's just a really nice inclusive thing. So looking to nurture as many people as possible on there to help them. I'd like to take on more coaching clients. Louise and I we started doing more blog posts, with our blog's growing as well, which is great. And following that, we're pushing on, and we're looking to do more that's about sort of, I suppose that how-to vegan stuff. So, we've done some stuff that's, how do I replace eggs, and giving people some really simple but detailed information on that. Questions that people are asking that are quite, there's not always easy access to information out there. People still go on Facebook groups and ask, oh, what do I do about this egg thing? And the information is out there, but sometimes not in as simple way as possible. So that's kind of the way we're going, continuing to do lovely recipes, and then sort of pushing more, and maybe even to the group coaching side as well, and masterclasses and things like that. So and you can hear about all of that. We put all that on our social media if we're going to be doing anything like that, because we think there's a lot to offer in terms of more one-to-one and group support. Is that you go to a gym class to get someone to kind of work you out, or you have a personal trainer. So, I thought, well, I can be your food personal trainer, and then I'll be there to help you, and you can phone me when you've got a problem. And you need help in the supermarket.
It's really interesting because this is an area I'm super passionate about as well. So it's really awesome to bring you on and finally have this discussion here. We're 5th generation ready meal. So like there's lots of people that grew up in homes where cooked food wasn't necessarily cooked fresh. And we're used to having convenience food. So some people have a very limited repertoire of recipes that they're comfortable making. So the desire to maybe incorporate more vegetables or do more plant-based things, I think the information is out there now, and people are aware, like, hey, this could benefit my health, this could benefit the planet. Obviously, there's the compassionate argument around how these animals are treated and stuff. So, this movement is no longer these like crazy militant people going and throwing blood around. Actually, there's a lot of like rational sense behind it, but it can still be really overwhelming. Like I remember when I went vegan, I was like, there's all these ingredients that exist now that I can have available to me, but I've never used them. Like I'd never actually cooked with lentils or legumes before, or tofu even, or like most people think like, oh, it has to be tofu. And I hated tofu. So I was like, I didn't even go near tofu for a while. And then I realized like, oh my God, there are actually like really amazing things. So I think it's such a great time now because there's so many options and there's so many people like you that are showing that this food can be delicious. Because I think the two main things that people worry about with having plant-based food is I'm not going to get fed enough. I'm going to be hungry, right? Like I'm not going to get enough calories, and or it's not going to taste good. So when you can overcome those two things, it's kind of like, yeah, I'd love to explore this. And I think it's so great what you're doing. So tell me, I mean, you talked really briefly about starting this business, doing the recipe box, and now you guys have recently pivoted. But if you could open up the curtains a little bit and talk about like that beginning stage and having a physical product business and the learning curve that you went through with that and how you guys arrived at pivoting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think in the end, what the original vision with everything, and it continues to be this, is to make veganism really easy and delicious, or plant-based eating, sort of wherever you are, make it really easy and delicious. So Louise, when I met her, she'd sort of been thinking about this box business, and she already had her blog. I sort of got this consultancy, and I've been informally helping restaurants for a really long time because they really were not cottoned on to the whole vegan options. Their options are pretty bad, and I thought, you're chefs, how do you not know this? But it's the truth, they don't. When they go to chef school, they learn how to cook with butter and meat, so they do need some help. And it was very surreal having a chef try some of my biscuits and go, I don't know how you got the crunch and the snap on that biscuit. And I was like, I just made them. I didn't. Yes, you're right. You're so yes. I got it on the whole vegan snap of the biscuit. I know the tricks, and I was like, oh God, I've just made a vegan biscuit. It's absolutely hilarious. And we thought there's so many incredible products on the market. Some of them are really small businesses. We also really wanted to support small businesses, and we sort of decided, well, look, actually, why don't we have a box? It's a bit different to everyone else's, that has products that help people cook. So like sauces, spice mixes, marinades. So it wasn't a recipe box as such. It was products that will help you with your cooking, help you discover new products. It was beautiful. Loads of people bought them as gifts because they were beautiful gifts, especially our Christmas ones. We did like dedicated chocolate ones with like vegan wagon wheels and vegan truffles and things where people were like, oh my God, this is an amazing vegan selection box and everything. And it was exciting. We got to try lots of lovely products. I had to prize myself away from them because we were sent so many samples of things and delicious food. But it meant, what was lovely, we got to connect with those businesses that were vegan, and we're still in contact with them today. So even when you pivot, you don't leave it completely behind. It's like, well, we made some really amazing connections through this. But, what we discovered is, there's a slog being an entrepreneur with whatever you do. People don't see the admin in the background, but I think we started to load the admin in the background. And what I also didn't really like, we were trying to do lots of different things. So we were trying to do the boxes and have this blog, and then we were like, oh, and we should start making videos, and we should do this and we should do that. And and we were having, Louise was working 5 days a week. I was having my 4-day-a-week job, and sometimes not working in between, but you still have to make sure you're finding your next piece of work and everything. So, you've got limited time, and you know, there were just so many things people don't think of that you, if you want to use a courier, you need to have you'd be selling a large volume of boxes, or you're talking about quite a large cost per box to send it out. And you can't charge that to consumer, because they're going to look at the cost of the post and packaging and they're going to go, well, that's a third of the price of the box. No thanks. So you have to use the Royal Mail. But when you use the Royal Mail, there's a weight limit. And if you go over that weight limit, it massively pushes up the price. And, you know, we had some, we laugh at them now, but moments where we packed up all these boxes and then realized the weight of the box was too much, and had to throw things out. Oh, it's just, you know, just things like that, where just really stressful. You're working with these suppliers, which are brilliant and beautiful, but something happens, like a lid of something pops off in the box. And, you know, you think, surely I can handle this better. And surely, you know, people say, I'll just work with suppliers that don't do that. And you're like, yeah, but if you're learning and you choose a supplier and you think everything looks fine, and you only find out it pops up in the box because as customers told you that, you know, well, fine, we're never going to use that supplier again, but it doesn't matter. It's popped up in the box now. This has already happened. And then you're replacing that box. And, you know, and then we decided, you know, in terms of what we want to do and being happier, let's use our voices more, let's educate more. I mean, Louise is doing some really fun cooking lives now, showing people how to make, you know, crispy chickpea snacks easily, scrambled tofu, and she's got this sort of you know, things, you know, ways that we weren't able to express ourselves before because we were so back office with these boxes. And we decided, right, well, we're still making plant-based eating really easy for people, but actually we're having a lot more fun now. And we're a lot less stressed. There's still stressful moments, but we're a lot less stressed because I'm not thinking, oh, loads of boxes have gone out and someone's contacted me saying something's gone moldy. This didn't happen like loads, but even when it happens once or twice and you realize there's a problem with the product, then you're like, oh, got to recall things. It's you know, it can be absolute madness. So that was sort of the reason for the pivot, and we were a lot happier. And even just, you know, starting to work with clients on coaching, it's so rewarding when they do well, and you're really helping someone and have an interaction, and you're learning so much at the same time. You know, that, you know, they say that when you coach, it's just a two-way learning, isn't it? You learn so much yourself by helping someone else. So it's been really, really brilliant. And, you know, Louise has found she calls her cooking chaos cooking now, because the first time she did a live, it went a bit wrong, and she actually wanted to delete the video. And she goes, oh, you know, she goes, oh, just watch it, Vanessa, and then I'll delete it. And I watched it, and I was like, that is hilarious. And, you know, it was one of our best recipes, but it just sort of went wrong. But it got so many views, and people really loved it. And so now she calls it her cooking, that, you know, join Louise for chaos cooking.
Yeah. So a couple episodes ago, we were talking about how the whole lockdown situation, we're starting to see into all our colleagues' homes through like Zoom meetings, and you know, like late night talk show hosts are having to like host it from their bedrooms, and their kids are doing the graphics and stuff. So we're now being exposed to reality rather than this like perfectly edited thing, and people are responding to like realness, you know, and like this idea of perfection. It's like actually perfection is imperfection, and chaos, as you say. But back to the you know, doing a recipe box, I think from so many entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, and my own experience with starting a business, you know, for those of you that haven't started a food business before, it's really important to understand that most of these small businesses might not have experience in the food industry. It's a learning process. There's no course that you take. So I remember I was flying around in the dark and just like hitting like, oh my God, I need to check if my coconut oil has been harvested by monkey slaves, and just the most ridiculous things that you don't realize when it comes to food. So that in itself can be so frustrating and suck so much of your time and energy, that I have such a respect for people with food businesses, because it is really difficult. And then you added the layer of having all these other different companies that were also small, that were also figuring it out, compiling it into one, dealing with the logistics, which, you know, my time at Y Food, where we had all these different like food tech companies and stuff, like logistics ends up being the biggest problem for most businesses, right? Like, how do you actually get these packages from A to B? Some people need to like deal with like chilling and that sort of thing. So like there's actually so many processes that you only know once you know them. And going through that process teaches you so much. And a lot of people are scared to start because they don't know anything. But like without starting, you don't end up going on that journey to discover what is in the business that you guys really like. You know, through that process, you ended up starting to do a lot more content, really enjoying it and seeing the benefits of that and realizing like you could enhance your own well-being and still have a really big impact by shifting what you were doing. So it's a brave decision, but an important one too. And you know, when you're an entrepreneur, what you set out to do is not often what you end up doing if you're going through that process. So
absolutely. I mean, there were also so many learnings with and it made me a lot more I've always been compassionate towards small businesses, but it made me even more compassionate towards them because, you know, I developed some lovely relationships with my suppliers, and we're still, you know, a lot of them are still friends. We use their products, we feature their products. We're like, you know, how else can we help these people? Can we send out some lovely coupon offers on our newsletter or something to people? But what you know, talking about post and packaging, sort of boring topic it sounds, but literally it makes or breaks a business. So I thought Vanessa talk about something more interesting than post and packaging, but it's completely true. And actually, you know, people are so used to you know, free post and packaging basically, and I know in the small businesses try and do as much as they can, where they say like, if you order over this amount, we'll give you it free. But so many people, they do get frustrated, and you have to educate them. They get very frustrated. Oh, yeah, I bought this product and it was this much for post and packaging. And actually, you know, be like, you look at the price and you go, actually, you know, the business is earning nothing on the P&P that you're paying. That is literally purely for them to get the product to you. And actually, if they paid that themselves, they'd make no profit on the product. And, you know, it's kind of getting people used to, look, if you do want to support small businesses, you might have to pay that P&P. Unless you order something, you know, a lot from them, because people sometimes want to say I'll support small businesses, but when it comes down to it, they say, oh, I'll go to the big company that's doing free delivery. So it's just remembering that sort of thing, really.
Yeah. And you know, the way, and we'll get into the activism conversation in a minute, which I'm really excited about. But you know, the thing that I talk about a lot is the way that you can really change things and really make an impact is deciding where you spend your money with, you know, like consciously deciding where you spend your money. So by spending it with small businesses, you're supporting people that have passions, that have solutions, that with more people that support them, those economies of scale happen. So when you're a small business and you're doing it out of your business partner's living room, you know, you don't have the economies of scale that the really big food companies have, that they can just come in and crush you because they've, you know, I did this consultancy project with one of the big companies that had this like new brand incubation arm, and they legitimately hired us to do a piece of work with them for them to decide how in the world they were going to launch a product with $100,000 or pounds, sorry, 100,000 pounds for their marketing. Like that to them was nothing. They were like, how are we going to do this? And I was like, are you kidding me right now? If I had 100,000 pounds to launch my new product. So it's really interesting to see that, you know, dichotomy between like small businesses. They're like, okay, we might have like 5,000 pounds to spend for the entire year, or we need to do all through word of mouth or like hustling or whatever. So it's so much harder when you're going up against these companies that have massive amounts of business. So yeah,
no, totally. But, I mean, you also learn how to be your own PR agent, you know, which is great in some ways. And I remember getting through to this like editor of a big newspaper, and he said no, but I was still like, I still got through to you. And you picked up the phone, and he said, he actually said, I don't know how you got through to me and got my number. I was like, I have my ways, you know.
I had it on my list when I had Heaven and Healthy. I was like, if I can just get into like the Stylist, you know, the page in Stylist magazine, which for those that aren't in the UK, Stylist is like this weekly magazine, and they have this page of like all the like hot things that you need to buy. And like that for me was like, once I get in that, I'm going to make it, you know. And I ended up like randomly like 6 degrees of separation getting introduced to the woman that edited those pages. and I got into it, and they ended up putting a typo on it. So they put my product as costing 24 pounds when it was actually 14 pounds.
Wow.
I was like, and I like got no sales from it whatsoever. So it's so interesting, the things that like you think like, oh, if I get that as, you know, like in my business, that will make such an impact. And actually it had none. And also there was no way to like go back and reprint it or whatever.
Yeah, 100%.
But so on that note, that was obviously like a really high and a really low for me. Like, yes, I got into it and like, oh my God, that did nothing and they got it wrong. So I'm just curious, like, this is an up and down process. So how do you stay motivated, and where do you get your inspiration from, and you know, your will to continue going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ups and downs. I think a big thing that and I'm so grateful is having a business partner, because you know, there's times it's been quite difficult. She and I have not seen each other for the longest we've not seen each other. So you know, before COVID, if I was out of work or on a Friday when I'm not in work, in terms of my freelancing job, which I do change management for, working with corporates, you know, I'd even go and meet her for lunch. So that we could have meetings and probably exchange food and things, you know, fun things like that. But having a business partner where you're holding each other to account, because, you know, she'll say to me, Vanessa, I really need that thing for you because we've got to publish that on Sunday, and that keeps you know, your deadlines going. Whereas if I made all my own deadlines, I'm not saying I would have to implement different levels of motivation, but having someone there where you're like, well, you know, this is both of us putting this in. So that's really, really helpful. I mean, I think just really enjoying things like food, and, you know, the fact that the vegan business is built into my whole life, because when I cook nice food for myself, there's always that sort of extra thing where I go, oh, could this go on the blog? Oh, how could I help people with this? And the fact that I'm doing something that really means so much to me. You know, I love animals so much. I love our planet. I love our food. I love our people. You know, I want our people to be healthy and well. That's just so important. And I think just, you know, that does burn inside my heart when I wake up. I'm like, you know, let's make this a better world. So that keeps me motivated. But, you know, also just being healthy. You know, I do get up and I do exercise every single day. I, you know, especially during COVID, it's great. You know, I've always used online stuff, but now I'm like, this is, you know, now that I don't have to walk anywhere, like, or walk, you know, get the tube or anything, it takes up commuting time. So I'm like, great, I have more time for yoga, more time for workouts. That's really important. And even just things like not switching my, you know, I can spend a long time on my phone and screen time, but saying, well, I'm not switching that on until I've done my yoga, done all of that stuff. And you know, I mean, sometimes that doesn't always happen, but most of the time it does. That's the sort of my rule. And the same, you know, at night time as well, can get into bad habits. But, you know, stay motivated like that, and remembering, you know, I am an extrovert, and, you know, go and socialize and talk about all the other things, go and have fun. And I've got some absolutely wonderful, I'm so lucky that I've known some amazing people like yourself. It's a shame we're not in the same country, but you know, but, you know, people that are really, really going to lift you up, and also that you can be vulnerable with. And I think that's really important, is that we've all got our public face. And you know, you go on Instagram and you see some people, you know, and you go and see their really positive posts, and you know what they're actually going through. And you know, I think there's obviously a balance. You don't want to tell everyone everything that's happening on social media at all. But we do feel a pressure of this sort of, oh, everything's going really well. And I think it's really important to, you know, you can be inspiring sometimes. You know, one moment you're inspiring someone, the next you're on the phone to a friend going, I'm really terrified about this. And, you know, and it's really funny. I had that in the space of one day. Someone, you know, I was helping someone and they were telling me how inspiring I was. And the next thing I was on the phone to another friend, you know, really upset and help me with this, and, you know, all of that kind of thing. And I think it's really important that you've got friends and family around. You know, I phone my mum a lot when I'm worried about something, and that you can just have those people you pick up the phone to, so they can go, you know what, it's all right, just give yourself a break. And then you remember that, oh, actually, it's okay, I am doing well, and not everyone is, you know, constantly on it all the time, and it's okay to have a wobbly. And as you move up and up, and you know, getting out your comfort zone, is hard. And that's
Yeah.
actually one other thing I'll tell you that I do for motivation that I've been doing now for well over a year is I get a cold shower every day. So people might have heard of Wim Hof.
Yeah, we talked about this last time. Go for it. Yeah, say it again. Say it again.
So I mean, he talks all about the fact that we're very stressed as humans, but we don't expose ourselves to a lot of natural stresses, which would have been, which are really, really important actually for us to thrive. I mean, even things like fasting. I mean, I do fasting, not in a huge way, like 24-hour fast every now and then, and but actually, people are very scared of these sorts of things. I will also preface with, don't just go and do fasting, everyone. Go and research it. Make sure you're safe. Go and talk to someone. Just prefacing that, not telling people to go out and fast. But we're scared of doing anything that in fact stresses our bodies, even though we're constantly exposed to all the stress. But what I love about cold showers, I'm not that hardcore. I get a hot one first and then turn on the cold. Just saying, everyone, even in winter, do it in winter. And it really gets you used to get every single day. Before you've even started work, you've had to get out of your comfort zone, and sometimes I've got the hot on for ages and I'm like, I don't want to do it. Maybe I could not do it today. But I always feel incredible, and it actually can even reset your body clock, especially if you've had a groggy night and you've not slept very well. I mean, if you want to be energized, go get that cold shower, shout things in the shower. My flatmate heard me yell, yes, queen, in the shower, because sometimes when I know when it's really cold, sometimes I shout things in the shower, or shout affirmations, because I'm just like, oh my god, and I yelled, yes, queen. And my flatmate was like, I heard you yell, yes, queen, And I was like, well, I'm just gearing myself up for the day, all right? Just let me. And I think that's really sorry. So it's amazing. So if you want to try something where you get out your comfort zone every day before you've even sat down at your laptop, get a cold shower.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Even if you're only there for 10 seconds under that cold shower, fine.
It makes a massive difference. I'm going to pull up a comment from one of our viewers. It's Giamara. She said, it's so true about social media. That's why I took a really long break from it. It can be toxic, and human contact is so important. And I just want to go back to your point before the showers about finding people that you can be vulnerable with, because it's one of the things I talk about a lot, especially with entrepreneurs. It's great getting advice from friends and family, but if they're not starting a business, or if they haven't started a business, it's really important to also get a group of people going through the same thing you are, because people, as you said, they want to protect you and keep you, within their comfort zone. So a lot of people that haven't started businesses or taken those risks are like, oh, that feels risky. I should give you advice to keep you safe, as opposed to also friends and family are really important for a lot of things, but like having other people in your life that are going through whatever challenge or transition that you're putting yourself through, making sure you can find other people doing the same thing. Because when I was starting my business, I was doing it on my own. It was when I started finding other entrepreneurs and started getting more involved in the vegan community, and you feel like, oh my God, I'm not alone. It's almost like entrepreneur therapy, to just be able to have this like cathartic talk about like, oh my God, and like shipping, and like, what about this? And Christmas, like those things that like your friends and family just wouldn't understand. But the other point that you made around, the face that you have on social media, and I think we talked about this the other day, is we're finding that people want to buy from people, and people want to buy from brands that they know, and they want to know those stories and those experiences. So like the big companies are really trying to give themselves an identity, because so many small businesses are kind of like growing really quickly, because people want to buy from people that they're like, oh, I know that person, or I could potentially talk to them, or oh, I got an email back from them when I wrote a question in. Like, it's so much more like personalizing and unifying. So, it's really interesting to see the startups like bring their personality, and the founders like putting themselves out there. And I love that you guys, the chaos cooking is amazing. So I definitely am going to have to like check this out, because anyone that knows me knows to stay the hell away from me when I'm in the kitchen, because Yeah, it's just like, whoa. But the Wim Hof stuff is awesome, because Hannah was on 2 weeks ago, and she's actually like studying Wim Hof. So
oh wow, nice.
yeah, and breathing and how important just these like systems that we have built in our body that our modern lifestyles have shut us off from. So just activating that kind of, just by having a cold shower, and like what an impact people are seeing, and like limiting depression and encouraging their motivation. And so on that note, you have been living kind of two lives, with still having the consultancy and running a business. So I'm really curious how you organize yourself, what systems and routines that you use, and also, as we were talking the other day, like what's your view on productivity and the pressure that you put on yourself now?
Yeah, so I do organize myself, and then there's other times I will admit I do not feel organized at all. Even though I'm super, and that's also the truth. People can look at you and sort of go, "Oh, look how well you're managing this," and you're like, "I need a holiday." So I mean, the thing is, what I've done, I suppose I've learned to be very clear about what I need and what I want, and all of it is also around having a lot of integrity for myself and for clients, whether they're the vegan side or the corporate side, and that I'm always able to do a really good job and really really serve people. That's really really important. And things like the fact I won't take a job that's 5 days a week, and being able to really articulate that to clients and say, when I'm with you, and this is what I also do sort of, is that when I'm working the day with them, apart from sort of on my lunch break where I might go and make calls for my vegan business because that's my lunch break, I'm there with you. Like we are going for it. We're going to do a good job for you. And that's really, really important, because also it puts me in the right mindset. And, the truth is, like with the work I do, which is in change management, some of it I really, really enjoy. It's the only corporate job I've found where I've gone, this is brilliant. And I was working in most recently in something called workplace change, where people want to redo their offices, but have a better culture around well-being, giving people more freedom to work in different places, which obviously now is even bigger, and people are going to need this even more. And that's actually stuff I really really believe in. So having that structure where I say, right, I'm only doing 4 days a week for you, then I can give those clients just the best service, and then say when I'm off, I'm off. Like if you do need to call me, of course you can, but that's my time and my time for my business as well. I mean, I think I've actually gone a little bit out of sync with my bedtime routine, but when I am in one of those jobs, and I've got my business at the same time, I'm very strict on when I go to bed. So, phone off as early as possible, try and get to sleep by 10:30, up in the morning by 6 a.m. I love the 6 a.m. club, which I've not been in for the last month or so. And it's really annoying me because my schedule's sort of gone off. And I'm not in one of those consultancy jobs at the moment. But up at 6, so I can do some exercise, make sure I'm preparing my food. And that's another thing in terms of like organizing my structure. And this is what I also teach people through my coaching is, I live and breathe sometimes one of the most busy lives you can imagine, because I've got these 4 days with a client, then trying to manage my vegan business, and actually like having a life and doing exercise, and always through that time eating good food. And that's why I want to help people in coaching, is because I say, look, I'm living and breathing it. Like I've got this busy lifestyle, and I'm still making all my own food that's really really healthy, keeping myself healthy, doing exercise. Let me help you. And batch cooking, making sure I know what I'm eating the next day. If it's a day I can't bring my own lunch in or whatever, just knowing, right, I know I can get something around my work. I might even bring some extra vegetables in my bag, because sometimes what you get from sort of takeaway places isn't quite what I'd eat. But having your structure with food, so that you know what you're eating, you're getting wholesome things into your diet. I see other people at work who really aren't organized like that, and that their energy levels are really really suffering. And so that structure is really 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 important as well. I suppose that those are kind of my biggest ways that I manage that when I've got all that stuff on and doing those two things together. But staying really motivated, because I've even got to sometimes have 8 a.m. meetings to meet a potential other client for a new job, and have a meeting with them, then get to work. in time as well. But just enjoying the process. I get to talk to nice recruiters who want to build a relationship with me. I get to speak to great people over the phone. I get to be in jobs where I actually have fun as well, and get integrated with a great team. And that, that structure is really, really good, and still making sure I have time to, have some coffees and lunches with them and build those relationships. It's a really important structure because, relationships and contacts keep me going. So, all of those things are important, and then doing the usual things, like other people maybe don't do this, but keeping things in spreadsheets, keeping your contacts that you need to talk to in a spreadsheet if you are trying to manage lots of different things like this, and make sure that within your business, even though it's well, we've got a couple of other people doing a few little bits for us at the moment between Louise and I, but keeping the two of us organized. We have got a lot of Google documents, a lot of spreadsheets about our social media, managing our recipes, managing our plans, sharing all those things with each other as well, because we don't see each other much. And actually, in terms of the structure, I sometimes work on quite separate things to Louise. I'll say, look, I'll go and get on with this, but I keep everything online so that even if she barely has time to see it, I can say, well, look, you can always go and see what I'm doing, so you always know. And we can have, scheduled phone calls to say, right, I need to make sure you're happy with this before I put this out, because this is both of us as well.
So I think you touched on two things that I talk about, because, I myself am starting coaching now. It's something that I've been really passionate about, with productivity, and how productivity skills can not only make you more optimized in the workplace, but optimize your well-being, right? Yeah. And it was when I finally clicked that for myself, and all these businesses that I go in and do work with them around optimizing their business, often what I uncover is their own systems or processes or organization really could use some work. And then it allows us to do more, better work in less time, so we can also look after ourselves. And it's applying those principles, like preparation, like organization, not only to the things we do at work, but how we approach our life, and put those things on autopilot. So it frees up our time, and it's just we're not thinking about things. So prepping your food, and then you're not scrambling around oh, I wanted to try to eat vegan. Well, actually you've already done a little bit of work, and you end up spending less time on it. And then the other thing that you touched on was communication. So boundaries. Knowing your boundaries, communicating your boundaries. So many people really struggle with this, because that fear that I'm going to look like I'm not good at work if I tell them no, I'm only willing to work 4 days a week, or hey, I don't answer calls after 6 p.m. Those sorts of things, when you actually implement them, your clients or the people that you work with respect you for that, right? Because when you're at work, your head's in it, you're doing a good job, and you've communicated what you're willing to do and what you're not, as opposed to not saying anything, getting angry. They keep calling you at 8 p.m. at night, but you keep answering, and then it throws off your evening routine. So I'm really glad you touched on a lot of stuff around that, and then organizing between you and your business partner. So organization, preparation, communication, learning those skills. And even if you have, no experience with them, you can start small, because you're kind of at the master expert level with all this stuff. But, just starting little things like that can make such a difference. So I want to go deep with you now, because, we had a conversation recently in the last couple of weeks that just completely moved me. And with everything that's been happening in current times in the last couple of weeks, it felt really timely. So I'm really happy that you're willing to share this experience. So I'd love if you could tell us about, the recent revelation you had about your own heritage and that experience and journey with it.
So the recent events, which obviously everyone knows about, has been it's been very triggering for a lot of people, but it's not new for many people. So people of color, basically. So I'm mixed heritage. We were discussing whether I was talking to you about, I started saying mixed heritage instead of mixed race, because I feel like that's a word I'd rather use, because I said, we're one race with a human race. So I'm saying mixed heritage. My mum's from the Bahamas. My dad is white, and I had this absolutely wonderful upbringing. But I was, and I was put into a white middle class area. Went to absolutely brilliant schools, had a brilliant education. But what I realised was that I looked different to everyone else, and I was treated very, well, in some ways, it was fun, and there were ways that I was treated very differently to everyone else, and it was noticeable that I was, in inverted commas, from somewhere else. And I'd grappled with that sort of my whole life, but never really spoken about it. And it was only very recently that I realized that I'd never fully connected with the color of my skin, the way I'd looked, never fully thought that it's beautiful, and that I fit in. And so over the last sort of 8 months, and I realized last year that we all have self-confidence issues, and I realized a big part of mine was actually not feeling completely comfortable in the way I looked. So growing up, I did have racist abuse, racist remarks. I was told at a very young age in school that you're black people smell, white people are better than black people, and no one doing anything about it. Obviously my mother tried to do something about it, but the school didn't, and I've been told the schools are doing slightly different things now. They don't tolerate that kind of thing, but people didn't know how to do that. And I, from the youngest age that I can remember, people asked me where I was from. And obviously as a kid, you're not aware of how you look. I mean, you see what kids do. Kids do anything. Kids play with their own poo. They're not aware of how they look. You become aware. You become aware of how you look. And I started becoming aware. Why is everyone asking me where I'm from? No one else is getting asked that. And it started sinking in. I'm not from here. I don't fit in some way. And even remembering things now that was said about my hair. And I suppose this is people, the whole thing of black hair, is talked about. Even I remember being told by my ballet teacher that my hair looked like a bush. And you'd call that a microaggression now, but back then it was totally okay. And she said it in front of everyone, and no one cared. But if you said that now to a person of color, that would be treated very, very differently. So when you're told constantly that you are different, you look different, that has an impact as well. And it's sort of taken me this long to sort of go, wow, I didn't really understand my identity. I didn't really fit in. I wasn't around other people that looked like me when I was younger. And while we don't want things to be about looks, we realize that a lot is, we're very visual creatures. And actually, if we're being told by the media and societal values that people who look a certain way are, whatever it is, whatever stereotype you want to put in it, always late, not as clever, whatever it is you want to put, that has a big impact on how people treat them throughout their lives, whether it's overt or covert. And what's interesting, my brother and sister, they look pretty white, and so they didn't have the same experience, and so it was never something we talked about. And I think as well, our generation only realizes that sort of things that happen, or the beliefs that you get given when you're younger, have a massive impact when you're older. It wasn't something that was so known back then as well, which is why it's only now, I suppose, we're the great therapy generation, where we go, oh, let's go back and let's dig in. Let's dig in, and let's go on this journey for happiness, and that's great. I'm really glad that we're part of that generation. But really understanding those feelings of like, I never felt like I fitted in. And I know a lot of other people can really connect with that, whether they're a person of color or not. But it really, really made me so aware of how I looked and what that had done, and people's reactions to me. And actually, it doesn't matter, like, what percentage I am, black or white. I've always felt more black than white, because the truth is, I've always actually been welcomed into black communities, but I've never always felt welcomed into white communities. And I was always more confident, I think, around black people. Whereas, I was telling you before that, I had doubts when I had sort of white friends, white partners, or anything like that. There was a sort of this like, almost like feeling like an inequality, and like, oh, you know, they're friends with me, and you know, why is that? You know, because you know, the messages that I was given, and that people of color are given, is that you're not quite as good, and you know, the way you look is not as desirable. And again, I think even people who are white will be able to connect with this, in terms of all of us feeling like we don't look good enough and we're not good enough. But you add an extra layer, I think, sometimes when it's a person of color. And I've recently managed to go to the Bahamas, which was absolutely wonderful. I actually had to come home early because of COVID, and you know, I only actually got 4 full days there. But you know, my memories feel like months there, and it's like, oh my god, I only have 4 full days, and I did all of that, and I saw family, and I sat around family who were, you know, the same color as me, and I was like, wow, I've never done that before. And you know, feeling that sense of belonging. That's nothing to do with saying that the family I've got, you know, are not good enough and didn't give me everything, but it's really indicative of what people of color are told about their skin, basically. And that struggle of sort of fitting in, and that inequality, and that lesser, and that fear around, you know, what is your hair, is it a bush, or whatever that is. And having that realization has been absolutely brilliant for me, because it's for a start, it's given me a voice more around racism. I don't actually believe in you know, coincidence at all. So I went through this literally just before this whole racial craziness came up, and it's obviously it's been so emotional for so many people of color. But you know, we can use that emotion, we can use that anger, to really channel and say, like, this has got to change. And since having this revelation, I've always spoken about racism, and had some very frustrating conversations about it. I've always discussed with, you know, my friends who are people of color about being a person of color. That's really important. And now that this has come up, you know, now is the time to, you know, we can say, right, let's actually share these stories. And you know, I found by talking to other people who are of mixed heritage, some of them have actually said to me, I never actually thought about it, but I've had a complete identity crisis, Vanessa. Or I've never really felt one or the other, or I felt too much one, or I've never felt good enough, or, you know, I've been confused about the color of my skin. And, you know, I've had people even of Indian origin going, oh, I've never been okay with the color of my skin either. And, you know, all these people coming at me saying these things, and it's been absolutely incredible. And I think, wow, we've never really been able to, we've never really spoken about this very much, you know. And I think that's been one of the best parts of it as well, is actually speaking to other people and getting them to come out and talk. And especially at this time when we need to be talking about this more and more, and get people to hear these stories and understand what racism is all about, and what it's maybe like to be a person of color or be a minority in any way.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you shared this revelation that you had and the journey that you went on, I was so touched, but also it just really resonated with me, like how I never had any idea that this was going on with you, you know. And we're close, and we've talked about like really, really deep things before. And, you know, and then not long after we had this conversation, this movement has started, and this opening of awareness around you're not alone in feeling like this. And so many people feel, you know, marginalized, or like they've had racism, you know, in their lives, and maybe not even realizing like what an impact that had, you know, because it's almost like, you know, okay, carry on, and the whole, you know, British, like stiff upper lip, like you just get on with things, you know? So it's like, it's almost like, oh my God, I'm realizing like what an impact this had in my life. And hearing stories like yours is helping people like me to be like, this is awful. And I want to learn more about this, and what can I do about this? So it's a really interesting time right now, because, you know, and we've talked about this a lot, like it's kind of like exploding. So there's a lot of different viewpoints. There's a lot of stories being shared, and, you know, there's a lot of things happening right now. And I'm really glad we're having this conversation, because I think, you know, having these types of conversations can be really scary. And the way that we're going to be able to move forward is being brave about having these types of conversations, because as a white person that's never experienced racism before, I'm terrified about saying the wrong thing. But at the same time, I want to help to make it different, you know, because I don't want my friends like you, I don't want anyone to be treated that way. So, you know, I want to be brave enough to say, like, I don't know enough about this. I've been educating myself. I want to learn a lot about it. I also want to like make a difference. And then, you know, for people of color, it's being brave enough to share their stories. And, you know, there's a dialogue that's starting to happen now. And there's a lot of, what's the right way to have the dialogue, or what's the right way to ask questions? And so I think there's a fear around it. And, you know, like how can we break down the fear around let's make this different. Let's change things, right? So one of my questions to you is like, what do you wish people would ask you about your experience or about this issue?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I would say like asking questions is so important. I want people to always do that. But in you know, simultaneous to that, at the same time, people need to be really educating themselves as well, because no question is a stupid question, obviously. But it's really important they're also doing their bit as well, and they're going and listening to the podcasts, watching the films. Go and watch 13th so you can understand, you know, 13th, if anyone who doesn't know, that's about the 13th Amendment in the US that, you know, in inverted commas, freed slaves, and how they continued to incarcerate Black and Latino bodies after that, because obviously when slavery ended, an entire workforce was taken away. And there was a crisis of, well, who's gonna do the work? Oh, okay, we'll find other ways of doing that. We'll find other ways of oppressing. We're not going to just give these people equal rights. So, you know, watching that kind of thing, understanding that kind of thing first, going and reading a bit about the history when you go anywhere. So when I was in the Bahamas, for example, I went to the old slavery site. And, you know, my origin in terms of my Black side is from West Africa. And those are the people who, you know, humans who were taken in Africa and who were enslaved and brought over, and actually going and seeing the houses that these people lived in and standing in them. And, you know, slavery was only like 200 years ago in the Bahamas, and some of those people are my direct ancestors, and going and standing in their houses and, you know, seeing the places they lived in. Wherever you go and see the Black history, go and understand that. It's not obviously going to be every single place in the world, but when we're allowed to travel, go and do that stuff too. And then in terms of questions to ask, I mean, yeah, obviously don't just keep walking up to any person of color and you know, immediately having that conversation necessarily, and use your common sense. But, you know, if you've got friends and family and people on your street and colleagues, you know, these are people that you talk to anyway. You know, ask them a question. You know, I mean, preface it first, you know, obviously make sure they're okay to talk about it, because some of them might say, like, actually, I've just had a massive conversation about this with my friend and I've had a really difficult week, I don't want to talk about it. But, you know, if they're your friends, you have conversations all the time. I would just want to ask you, like, look, I don't really know very much about what it's like to be a person of color and discrimination, or what a micro discrimination or microaggression is like. You know, can you tell me about your experience? Because I really feel like I don't understand. Or, you know, also, you know, what was it like growing up as a person of color in the environment you were in? And, you know, some of the stories you'll hear will really shock you. I was speaking to someone only recently, and there's a Black guy I know, and said, you know, what are you feeling around this and what have you experienced? And he said, I didn't even wear hoodies until I was 18, because when I wore hoodies, people would cross the street away from me. And he was recently in a supermarket, a kind of an upmarket supermarket in the UK called Waitrose, and he was going to buy strawberries for his mum, and he got followed by the security guard in the supermarket. And he had to turn to the security guard and say, I've got money in my hand, I've got £10 here, I'm going to buy something, I'm not going to steal. And the security guard left him alone. And that's just one window into, and he's a doctor, you know, not that should make a difference, but no one's free from that. It's not like, oh, if you're a higher class black person, you're not going to get that. It's like, no, anyone can get that. It doesn't matter how much money you're earning or anything like that. Like the color of your skin will make people behave in a particular way towards you. Find out about that. Find out about their history, their experiences, their parents' experiences. That's all really, really important. Even finding out, because everyone's got a different experience. What did their parents teach them about their color? So another friend of mine who's mixed heritage, I was asking her, how did you grow up and what did you feel? And to be honest, she and I, even though we were quite new friends, we hadn't talked really about the color of our skin. We had talked about where our parents were from, but we hadn't actually had this discussion. And she said that her mum said to her when she was younger, like, things will be more difficult for you, and when you go and you've got to behave really well because you're representing the black community, and when you go in a shop they're more likely to think you're going to steal. Those sorts of things where I thought, oh my God, I've never heard that coming out of her mouth. I didn't know that's what she went through and that's what she was told. Her mum was trying to protect her, obviously.
Yeah.
But finding these things out and saying, look, I really, really want to learn, and then just listening to those experiences. I've got another friend, a black guy who is a yoga teacher, and when I asked him, I said the question, do you ever experience discrimination? And his response was like, all the time. And he was telling me stories like, he runs when he's late for a yoga class, and he was running and policemen stopped him. And they said, what are you running from? He was like, well, I'm late to a yoga class. And he was about to get on his motorbike. And then they said, we need to see papers for the motorbike. And he was like, right, let me get this right. So I'm running from a crime and I've stolen the bike. And we had this joke, which was like, white man runs and he's fit, and a black man runs, he's obviously running from a crime. And it's a joke, but it's not a joke. It's like, that is what they thought. This guy's running because he's late for something, and policemen are like, oh, there's something happened. It's just because he's black. No other reason at all. And he didn't mind me asking him that question. And I'm his friend, and I think, go and speak to these people, speak to people at work, go and get involved. I think with workplaces there's an awful lot that can be done. That's got to be more than just your diversity policy. And it's been really amazing actually seeing companies do more than I have ever seen them do. But what's really important is that the leaders are behind it. There's money behind it. It's not just stuff people are going to do in their free time. I'm also a change manager with my corporate hat on as well. And unless there's resource behind it, unless the leaders are behind it, unless they're endorsing it, someone's got to have a part. It's either got to be full-time, few people full-time, depending on how big the company is, that runs these anti-racist committees, that makes sure things are done, that makes sure there's proper processes for people, where and also spaces where people can ask, well, what is a microaggression? Or having proper training where people can have spaces to ask these questions, like, what, or even putting it back on people. What do you think the impact is when you go up to someone and ask if you can touch their hair? When you're not their friend. It's different when my friends say, oh, I love your hair, can I touch your hair? And I'm like, yeah, of course. But going up to someone just because I've got dreadlocks and trying to touch their hair, and but ask the question. And I think one of the most wonderful questions I was ever asked, and I think I told you about this before, when I was about 15, I went to visit a girl that who was apparently now vegan. I found out. A girl who I was going to babysit. And I went to meet her family, and that was really lovely. And we're sort of getting on very well. And then the little girl, she was looking at me like quite confused. And then in the end, she just said, "Why is your skin a different color to mine?" Because she just didn't know. And her mum was really embarrassed, and that also says a lot, that her mum was really embarrassed. And my response was, excellent question. And actually the reason is, melanin. It's to do with, where we come from all over the world, and all of those things. And, that's what it's about. And actually, that really stuck with me, her asking that question, because it was pure curiosity. And actually, some people don't even have that understanding. And, some people look at people of color and they think they're a different species sometimes of the way they're treated. And it's like, actually, it just, in the end, well, we have these different features because we kind of come from originally from different parts of the world where the sun shines differently, things like that. And so, I think being able to ask those questions and not being so scared of those, but, also creating spaces where we can ask those questions. If you're not able to just go and, maybe you don't have a friend who's a person of color. I'd like to think everyone does, but maybe you don't. But at work, what spaces are you creating where people can talk about those things and ask those things as well? And there's probably a lot of online forums as well.
So I'm just pulling up another comment from Giamira. She said, it's incredible how similar our experiences are the more and more you talk to people of color, and how long we haven't talked about it and just accepted it as part of life experience. Giamira is also mixed heritage. She's tuning in from Germany right now, which has some like crazy things that are just part of their culture that are like super racist, So she and I have talked a lot about this as well. And I think from speaking to all my Black friends and mixed heritage friends, I think the asking questions about their personal experience, if they're okay to talk about it, is cool. But where a lot of people seem to be getting frustrated is when they start getting grilled with, history questions, or what about this policy, or what about that? And it's just like, look, I'm not representing the entire population. Like, please, can you do your own research and then come back to me and have a conversation? So I think there's a big, onus on white people like me. It's like, if you don't know a lot about this or the history or people's experiences, take it upon, and you don't like it, and you don't like that it's happening, take it upon yourself to educate yourself. There's plenty of resources out there. You mentioned the 13th, which is such an eye-opening, brilliantly done film, and actually disgusting that it's been happening right under our noses this whole time. A book I'm reading right now, which I'm really enjoying, is called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And he breaks down definitions of racism, right? Like, you're either racist or anti-racist. And what he means by that is, like, it's a fluid thing. It's not like you're permanently one or the other, but your actions or your inactions. So complacency or neutrality is racism. So if you see something like, when you were talking about people touching your hair, you just reminded me of, when Keith Flint died last year, and I went with my Black friend to one of the like celebrations for Keith Flint, and this guy kept coming up to her and touching her hair, and she was so used to it because she had this big, beautiful afro, and like it happened to her all the time. And like the second, the first time I was like, okay, this is not cool. And the second time he did it, and I just had this like rage take over me. And I finally like went after him and I yelled at him. I was like, stop touching your hair, dude. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing? But like, if I just stayed neutral in that moment and not to like make a scene or whatever, like that's racism on my part by being neutral in that moment. So I really like that definition, because you can be actively, like, consciously anti-racist by making sure that you're not being neutral or complacent in those situations, right? And that's how we can start to change this, is like when you witness it happening, or when you aren't sure about something, like asking questions, or just being more conscious about your decisions in your thoughts, behaviors, your actions. And all of those small actions will have such an impact, because anytime that we're confronted with a situation, if we're more present in that mindset of like, how do I be an anti-racist in this moment? That's it's I'm not saying it's the end all be all solution, but like individually, that's how we can start having an impact and making this movement into a positive one where we obliterate racism. Like, it's crazy it's still even happening, but obviously like, what I felt when it all kicked off was, it was like a guilt that like whatever I'd been doing wasn't enough. And then I realized I hadn't really been doing much apart from treating my friends as I would any other human being. So like, how can I be more active in this and educate myself and start asking questions? So I guess it's a very long tangent into like, yes, ask questions, but also like, please take some the responsibility in educating yourself and going out and exploring and finding information that's available. There's tons, you know, and it's just overwhelming when you start like peeling back the layers and looking into it. But I think you and I were talking, it's like, look, there's a lot of guilt wrapped up in it. And I certainly feel that way. And I know a lot of other white people do, this idea of like white privilege. And, you know, you're not aware of what you're not aware of. So it was when I read recently, a women's study professor was analyzing her own white privilege and putting it into terms, you know, with what she uses for the women's movement. So basically, like, men aren't aware of their male privilege because there's things that happen in their lives that they never have to think about. Like women, like, they don't have to think about, is this outfit going to make me look like a slut? Or am I going to be safe walking by myself at night? So it's only when those things are brought to their consciousness that they even start to be aware of their male privilege. So it's kind of the same thing with white privilege. It's like these things that you have experienced and other Black people or mixed heritage people or different heritage people have experienced. Like, I've never had to deal with that before. I'm not aware of it. So, like, you know, just by becoming aware of it, we can start to become aware of privilege. But I'd love to hear what you think needs to happen or what you'd like to see change to break down these racist attitudes and systems.
Yeah, I think one of the first things is getting people to really use their empathy. I've kind of been slightly annoyed by some of the posts. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be annoyed about it, but I contest what some of them say, which say, even though I will never understand, I stand by you. And, you know, social media has been a bit difficult during this time because it's been great for getting messages out. And I believe everyone should be using their platform and talking. But in the end, if you just want to say things, it doesn't help enough. You know, I went to this local demonstration yesterday, which was just absolutely beautiful and amazing. I sat for 3 hours listening to the speeches. And I thought, 3 hours, oh, we're going to sit down for 3 hours. It was glued. I was absolutely glued. Even a 15-year-old reading this most beautiful poem called Dear Mr. Police Officer, and it was all about her fears around being a Black person and saying, you know, basically, please don't kill me, please, you know, just really incredible hearing from other Black males who were talking about their confidence issues and you know, that constant sort of when they see a police siren, the way they feel, you know, so really, really connecting with those things, but using your empathy. So even when people say, you know, oh, I'll never understand, it's like we have all been through suffering, trauma, feeling like we don't fit in, even if that's for the outfit that you wore. You felt you didn't fit in. Fine, it's a bit different. A Black person can't take off their skin, but you still felt from the way you looked, when you dressed a certain way, your hair was a certain way, you didn't feel good looking enough or whatever it was, that you didn't fit in. So you can empathize with all those things. I mean, one of my friends, for example, his brother was killed by National Front members in the 80s. In London, this guy went to get fish and chips, and 2 guys killed him for the color of his skin in London. I mean, that hasn't happened to me either, but I can empathize. I can go, oh my God, I've got a brother. You know, all those things. It's like you have family members you love, you have people you love, you know, innocent people that have died. You know, you can all listen to those stories and you can empathize. So I say to people, like, you know, don't have this idea that you can't fully understand, because you can. You know, you can start to understand, because you'll hear any inspirational story, and the reason we well up with stories is because we go, I really connect with that. Oh my God, you're suffering. Oh my God. You know, we do that. We've been heartbroken, all those sorts of things. So listen to those stories, use your empathy and connect. That might be what it's like to go through whatever it is, or feeling like you're not good enough at work, doing a presentation and getting terrified and feeling like you're getting grilled for the wrong reasons because someone doesn't like you. It might be they don't like you for a different reason. It may not be the color of skin, but you felt that as well. So I think that's really, really important. I think also remembering that whoever you are, you have influence. You know, this word influencer gets thrown around. You all have influence because you all talk to people, and then you get people who've got, you know, maybe more influence. So say you are CEO of an organization or something like that. You know, you really need to be doing something. And I've heard CEOs say, look, we do the right thing and we hire people based on skills. And, you know, that also brings me to a point where I and I know people have had good intentions by doing this, but people who have said, well, I'm colorblind, I don't see color, and I just treat everyone the same. And it's like, well, is that helpful right now, when actually, you know, we're trying to make these big changes, and actually people of color have gone through this their whole lives. They're still in situations where they're more likely to end up in prison, more likely to be discriminated against, more likely to be killed by police. Is that really helpful, you being colorblind? Because actually you're not able to hear the stories properly. And actually, if you are in an organization, you're able to have some sort of influence. Everyone in their organization, whatever level you are in your organization, again, you have some influence. You can say, actually, I want to be on the anti-racist committee. However, you know, entry level you are, you can be part of that. And saying that you're colorblind is really not helpful, because you're not recognizing that actually those black employees I've got, or those people of color, are struggling in XYZ ways, and they're less likely to get promoted. They are probably less likely to ask for a pay rise. All of those things. Stop being colorblind. It doesn't help. And also, you know, and what was amazing about yesterday, I mean, you have these just inspiring black people. It's just so incredible that they're my neighbors. They live in my local area, and I just felt this wonderful, wonderful connection. But, you know, they were saying, like, you know, I am black and beautiful, I am black and proud. They don't even want to go, oh, let's all pretend we look the same. It's like, it's like they, and this is their time to be like, I am black, I am beautiful, I've got beautiful hair. That's absolutely wonderful. So pretending that you're colorblind, not helpful. Not helpful at all. You've really got to recognize, like, actually that person is in a less advantageous position in society than me. What can I do about this?
And I think, the thing that we've talked about, and a lot of what I'm reading in the books is I think older generations had to assimilate, right? And like this idea of assimilation, that we need to get different races to act more like another race, and actually, it's not celebrating differences that people have, and that's part of what I get so passionate about with Unrestricted. It's like breaking these societal norms of what like we should be doing, and I just think I'm speaking slowly because of course I'm always conscious of like not saying the right thing, but I just think difference is beautiful, and difference is what creates where creativity comes from, when people have different viewpoints or different experiences, or come from different places. And it's why I love traveling so much, because I get to experience so many different cultures and the beauty of that. So the other thing that I really like about this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, is he talks about assimilation and how both white people have tried to assimilate other heritages into being more white, and that will make them better, but also like different races, different heritages trying to assimilate in order to make life easier for them. So I think I don't know if I'm explaining this thought really well, but I think we need to find a place where we can celebrate difference and recognize that difference is not less than or more than, but actually it contributes to our experience of life, and being able to experience so many more beautiful things, and being able to be a lot more innovative in our thinking, and take in different viewpoints. So it's a book I highly recommend, because it's just helped me to kind of formulate like, how do I contribute to this? And I think particularly in some of the programs that I've been involved in with nonprofits or whatever, it's like when you go into a community or a type of person and you try to change them to be more like you're not going to be effective, right? So like, what can we also do to encourage people to be themselves, and celebrate that and love that? So
I mean, I think that it's obviously there's similarities when I share my story. I mean, even with Giamara, who's listening in as well, there's the similarity that they were both in this mixed heritage. But in the end, we've all got different stories, because there's other people who are born mixed heritage, who were born into a more predominantly people of color area. I was born into an area where, I'd like to say I got, in inverted commas, white privilege. I was next to one of the best state schools probably in the country. My parents sent me to a private school. I had all of that stuff, so I've got very different experience to what someone else will. And I think that's the thing. People don't care about stats. They care about stories. And, everyone is different. And then, you and I are friends, the thing, because we have really similar experiences, It doesn't matter that I'm a person of color and you're not, and I think that's the thing, is that everyone's got different experiences. I think everyone's got to start getting comfortable with the complexity. And someone yesterday was talking at this demo, and she was saying, look, I'm from Ghana. So why are people coming up to me saying wagwan? She's like, I'm not all black people are from Jamaica. and I think that's also important to remember, that we lump them to, we lump people of color together with this, oh, you must be from this place, or oh, do you eat jerk chicken, or whatever it is that you think of. And so actually there is this beautiful wealth of culture and food and celebration and dress and custom, and and it's exciting. And that's what I think, get excited about it. In the same way, not all white people are the same. They're from all sorts of different places and all different backgrounds and all different experiences. And I know, we like, as humans, to sort of, we want to go in a box, put it in a box. That's a lot easier for me to deal with. But in the end, it's not like that. And start finding that exciting, and start being curious about it.
Yes.
Because unless you ask the question, and I've found that when I've tried to open up about some of this stuff in the past, people haven't really asked questions. They're sort of almost like, that's nice. There's been a bit of that sort of response, and it makes it hard to kind of, oh, I don't think this person's really that interested in the story, so I'm going to kind of leave it. But being really curious about different people's culture and where they're from, and don't just assume that because you've got two people who are both black, that they've got the same experience. There was different people, and they might, not just, or their parents might be from different places, or one might be from the Caribbean, one might be from Africa, or whatever. It's like everything else, they're still two different people. And sorry, you can't put everything into a stat, but you're going to have to start listening to stories more. And guess what? They are so much more interesting, inspirational, beautiful, and you can connect person to person. There's so many incredible things that you can develop yourself. This isn't just someone going to have to work hard to, change things for people of color. It's like, actually, you're going to develop as well through this. You're going to change as a person. You're going to connect more. You're going to develop your empathy more. See it as a bit of a project on yourself as well, and go and have fun with it. Learning is fun. We're all in this sort of thing, personal development and learning. It's like, I'm excited. My flatmate and I are sort of building up a list of things we're going to watch. We watched Michelle Obama's documentary the other night, Becoming, and we've got other things on our list we're going to watch. And I've been downloading podcasts that are great. I found one that's sort of 3-minute bite-sized podcast on bits of Black history of Britain, and I'm like, 3 minutes, this is amazing. I'll just smash through through a few of these when I'm cooking or whatever. Find these bits of time, even if you don't have time to join a book group. All these things are really, really important.
I think you're so bang on, because like empowering yourself is really exciting, right? Like you can sit in fear and sit in indecision and sit in a place where you're doing nothing, but like just by taking the time to educate yourself and learn something new and learn a new skill, and being uncomfortable in that moment, like, starting from a place of like, I don't have a lot of knowledge, but I can start taking action to get knowledge and do something about it. And that in itself, yes, it's a very uncomfortable conversation, because it's finally like it's being ripped open, and there's so much complexity around it, and there's so many differing opinions about it. But the way that we can sort through that is educating ourselves and listening to the stories and having empathy, and just being brave enough to sit with that discomfort, instead of like, I'm just going to post something on social media and go back to my life the way it was, because I'm not contributing to it. Well, if you're not contributing to the conversation, you're not helping either. So, I think, at least with all of my friends that I've spoken to, everybody's been very open to having this dialogue with me, because it's like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. I want to understand, your experience, and like, how can I help? And, I might say the wrong thing, and nobody's attacked me yet for being curious and wanting to get to a point where I understand this and help. So, I think if people can just be brave enough to take that step, and, you don't need to go out and publicly like start saying things on social media all the time, like just educating yourself, and you're going to feel a lot stronger in that. And you're going to be a lot more aware when situations come up where you can make a different decision than you might have before you started educating yourself, right?
Yeah. I mean, there is one other thing that also I'd love people to do, which sort of came to me very recently, is, you know, a lot of the people who maybe are listening to this, and you and I mean, I've got a lot of educating of myself to still do on this. You know, I've got my big lists. Not everyone is doing this. And that's really, really important to remember, that, you know, you talk to your friends, and, you know, your friends are people who are similar to you, right? And everyone's going and looking all this stuff up, and you're like, oh, everyone's educating themselves. They're not. They're really not. And, you know, I got a voice note from a friend in Bristol, and Bristol is, you know, the center of the slave trade. And, you know, big slave history. I live near, my parents, still live near Black Boy Hill and White Ladies Road. No one questions that. You're like, oh, let's go to White Ladies Road. You know, it's you know, all of that anyway. So he's from Bristol, and he left me a voice note, and he was like, I don't really get what this is all about. You know, all these woke people kneeling and blah blah blah, and then okay, to his credit, he asked at the end, like, oh yeah, but what's your opinion as a, you know, because obviously you're a person of color. I was like, well, thanks for that. Thanks for, you know, giving me that chance. And I haven't even responded to him yet, because I was just like, do you know what? Like, I just right now I just can't. I've got other things to sort of deal with. I will respond. But my ask is, you know, I've had to answer that kind of attitude my whole life, and so have other Black people and people of color. And I've met other Black people who've said, you know, one girl actually said, I just tell people to go and read the book Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. She said, I can't deal with that conversation anymore, and I totally understand why. And there is an exhaustion, even though I am determined to keep talking about this. Part of me is like, I have been banging on about this for a really long time, as have all the, I mean, the work and the progress that, I mean, also that is inspiring in itself. Like, when you look at what these Black people and people of color have done, despite the way they have been pushed down, their brothers and sisters being killed by police, and you're like, wow, these people are, I mean, that is also inspiring in itself. You're just like, if you want some inspiration and motivation, go listen to these people. But what I would like is, I'm almost like, I wish a white person would just educate themselves and go talk to this guy instead of me doing it, because I'm exhausted. I want someone else to do it. So that is what I would love. I would love it if some of those exhausting conversations could be done by white people, and you know, and recount some of the stories. I've given you some stories on this podcast about, you know, a guy wouldn't even wear a hoodie until he was 18 because people was across the street from him. You know, take some of these stories, you know, understand them, and then go and inspire people with them, and say, like, this is what these people have had to go through. Understand what systemic racism is, so you can explain it to people like him, because you're not just going to come across other people who are your friends who are like, oh, let's watch a Black movie together. You know, people are going to be going, I don't really get it. You know, that's why there are white supremacists. I'm not saying my friend is definitely not one of them. He just doesn't understand. But it's a frustrating conversation where someone's going to be arguing back with you.
And the more that we do it, so, you know, I mean, you know me, I love psychology, I love branding, I love messaging, I love how, you know, psychology, I mean, the big companies, the politicians, they all use psychology against you in the marketing and propaganda that goes out there. But one thing that is incredibly powerful is, you know, societal pressure around attitudinal changes, right? So, like, there is a tipping point in which if enough people in the population feel a certain way or do a certain thing, then it puts, you know, kind of pressure on the rest of society, or it will be that point at which everybody starts changing their mind. So, you know, for those of us like me that are like, this isn't cool, I want to do something about it, I'm going to talk about it more, I'm going to educate myself more, I'm going to take these stories and go out and share it. The more of us that do this, it's going to get to the point where other people are like, I can't not sit in my doing nothing. I can't not start looking at this. And we're already kind of seeing that happen a little bit. And, you know, you and I talked about the Me Too movement and how kind of, you know, that was really amazing for women's issues, and men started asking questions as a result of that. And I think we're seeing that now, and it's, you know, it's going to be messy, and it's not an easy fix. And there's so many layers to this problem at so many levels on a global level as well, you know, but being active in this discussion, being active in how we think about this and being conscious in that, instead of just like, that's your discussion to have because, you know, you're the Black person, so you should answer that question. Well, no, you know, like let's take this on and let's do something about it. So so we could probably sit here and talk for hours. We're running over time, but thank you so much. Like, you know, it's just the start of a conversation. What I'd really like to do is after the chat, if you can give me some of the resources that you mentioned. I've got some myself. If anybody that's watching wants to send them to me, and I'll send that out along with the replay link for this, and I'll add it to the video. So there's resources that we've all looked at if people are looking for some more things. Giamira also mentioned Just Mercy, which goes into the history of social discrimination in America. So I think there's a lot of these resources, the 3-minute podcast that you mentioned. There's so many different forms and ways that you can start looking into this stuff. And some of it's really like entertaining and interesting as well. You know, like the Madam C.J. Walker series on Netflix is absolutely incredible and super inspirational. And, you know, so there's so many good resources out there. It doesn't have to just be about making yourself feel bad. Like the way you can stop feeling bad is to do something about it. Educate yourself, start having these conversations. So before we sign off, I would really love to, oh, sorry, if you want to add another point and then I'll ask you mine.
The only thing I wanted to add is support Black businesses. You know, and what was great is when we were doing the boxes, we learned who all the Black people were and all the people of color. And, you know, it's great because we've been able to shout about some of them. It doesn't all have to be, you know, sort of the doom and gloom side. You know, it's the celebratory side as well. It's got to be all of it. You get to have all of it with this. You know, go and buy from these people, go and support their restaurants, go and buy their products. Go and help them because they have been at the bottom of the pile in terms of economic stacked against them. So that is something you can do. Put your money there as well. And you will also learn that they are doing the most incredible things, the most incredible products. And we still only promote businesses that we think are amazing. And all these ones we're promoting, we're like, yeah, that stuff is absolutely incredible. So that kind of thing is really important. Where are you putting your money? Go and think about that.
Absolutely. That's one of the best ways to facilitate change, is being conscious about where you're spending your money, you know, and making a conscious purchase decision with things that you believe in, or, you know, not buying into things you don't believe in. So if you see big businesses that you don't feel like are making enough of an impact or making enough of a stand against this or making enough action, put your money elsewhere. It speaks volumes. And I saw this massively in the food industry, you know, like you and I have talked about this at length. And the way in which we were able to start getting the big food companies to change things was show them that the money was going elsewhere. So either you step two and you start doing the right thing, otherwise you're not going to have anybody spending money with you because people care about this kind of stuff. So it's incredibly powerful. You can vote with your wallet. It does make a massive impact. So please, you know, use that as another tool and resource. And you're absolutely right. Support Black businesses, you know. So my last question, I have two very quick ones, but hopefully everybody will indulge us in going a little bit over time. I think this has been an incredible chat. So what does living unrestricted mean to you?
So I think living unrestricted, I heard this recently actually on a Mind Valley podcast. They're absolutely brilliant also if you want to stay motivated. And so I'm kind of taking someone else's definition now, but that's fine. And this guy was talking about something called rules, which were bullshit rules. And, you know, and this is also something I've come to very recently with my own life and understanding how I live my life. And I was thinking about all the beliefs and the rules that I've put in place. And then you look at these rules and the way you live in life and, you know, I must do this. I have to do this. I think you said to me once, like when you were in the UK, I can't remember the expression. I was, you know, constantly saying I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I have to do this. I have to do that. There was no I want. There's no I want in there. And I think that's kind of what it is for me. You know, looking at those rules I've always lived by. You know, we were told, for example, when we went to university, oh, you'll find a nice boy and you'll get married and then you'll have kids when you're 21. You know, no, you know, that was a bullshit rule that you're sort of, you know, meant to go by. And then there's also these other rules that I think I have for myself. I must do this in the morning. I must, have this particular job or whatever it is. And it's just not true. And I think unrestricted is like making up your own rules as well, because I think discipline is very important. That's why I get a cold shower every day. I mean, it makes me feel good. It's not just for the sake of it. But that is a discipline. That's a discipline I put into my life. But I think living unrestricted is about saying, well, I'm gonna, as long as I'm not hurting anyone else, that's very important, and looking after myself, I'll make up my own rules. Thanks.
I love that. I might steal that from you or whoever you stole it from. That's amazing.
Someone else, so it's fine. Go ahead.
I'll just repurpose that. So my last and final question, very quickly, is if you had a magic wand and you could wave this magic wand and something would change, and it can be personal, it can be global, it can be for your business, whatever, like it's your magic wand, you can wave it and one thing will happen, what would that be?
Yeah, so I think I realized this during this really intense meditation, and not last Christmas, the Christmas before, at this random Christmas dinner vegan event. I didn't know there'd be this big meditation, and all these questions were coming up, and that was the things they were taking you through. And I used to wish things that were a bit more sort of general, and then I realized the wish I had was, I wish the entire world had empathy. And that's not just, I wish cruelty to animals would stop, or I wish racism would go away. It's like, I'm going to pick the one that's right at the top, that's going to try and change everything. I was like, I'm going to try and get everything into my wish here. And I was like, what would that be that captures everything? And okay, if I'm saying it's going to cure every single problem, but if everyone had empathy, think how incredible that would be, because people wouldn't treat other people in a particular way. They wouldn't create systems that are designed to bring certain people down, because they'd go, well, I'd know how that would make people feel and suffer. I'm not going to buy things that are making people suffer or making the planet suffer. That would just be the most incredible, that we wouldn't have wars. It would just be, I sound like a, Miss World. I wish for world peace, but I do. I really, really do. And I think if everyone had empathy, they would also be really happy, because you need to have empathy for yourself as well. You need to have compassion 100%. For yourself. So that's my wish. Girl. Make it come true, yes, please.
Queen. Vanessa, thank you so much. This was incredible, very inspiring. I really appreciate you being brave and sharing your story, and I hope,
thank you.
And I know it's resonated with a couple people from the comments so far. So thank you so much for sharing and inspiring us and giving us some tips on how we can help. So I'm going to put you to one side and I'll talk to you. And then I'm going to tell you guys about what's coming up next week. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you
so next week, another incredible woman is going to be joining us on Unrestricted, Miss Kenzie Allure, who is a sensual movement guide and a process improvement consultant. This woman is absolutely incredible, and not only works as a process improvement project manager for a Fortune 500 technology company, but she also teaches pole dance and yoga. And she has used pole in her own life to overcome some pretty incredible and awful kind of situations. And she's now using that experience of empowering herself to be comfortable in her femininity, and using pole as a means to do that, to help other women to overcome sexual trauma and issues that they might have, and using pole as a really empowering tool to be able to embody your feminine and be in that strength, and kind of breaking down the impressions that we have, around pole dancing, around embodying our sexuality or our femininity as women. So she's incredible. I'm super excited to share her story and talk about all things pole dancing, and also managing the dichotomy of that, of living in a very, very corporate lifestyle at work and having this incredible passion that she does outside of work. So I hope you'll join me next Sunday, same time. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, lots of love. Let's go out and live unrestricted. Thank you.